Yeah, thanks, Ollie. Morning, everyone. Yeah, I guess with this, really from me, chatting to Ollie, starting to understand about start to stand up, I've had a kind of interesting story, I guess, that I've ended up with a Web3 agency. I work in blockchain. I work on some pretty cool projects now. But I started up in the corporate world. I was well along that track, and yeah, to be honest, yeah, it's sort of, speaking with Ollie and Lee, they sort of said it might kind of be a bit of interest to the group, really. So yeah, I guess, I started in corporate publishing. I was working for various different magazines and doing display advertising and all like classic sales job, as it were, really. So all of my career has been within sales. I like networking, I like chatting to people, and I like selling things, really. Um, so yeah, from within that corporate world, it was really when my little boy, when my wife got pregnant, I suddenly realized that I was traveling all around the world. I was spending a lot of time in America, going to food shows in the Middle East and stuff. And it was that sort of moment, really, of I guess, when I was growing up, my dad was around at weekends, and I was just suddenly like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that. I want to be, and not even being around at weekends. I was going away for weeks at a time. So yeah, I kind of made that decision. It was a big decision, and my wife at the time was like, "What are you doing? You've got a solid career here. You've got a job for life if you stay there and stuff." And it was one of those where really, I think within that job, there was people that had been there for like, 40, 50 years sitting at the same desk and stuff. And, yes, you have that security, but I was just like, I just can't do that. So, yeah, so I decided to quit. I lived in Brighton at the time. There was a lot of, obviously the new tech sort of scene in Brighton was thriving at the time. And this was like, what, 15 years ago now? Well, no, probably about 13 years ago. Yeah, so I sort of took the plunge, really, left the corporate world, got a job in a little startup where it was, 6 people sat on fake grass with their bean bags, and everyone has a macro each. But yeah, that was where I managed to then I kind of start my journey, really. So they built a machine learning recommendation software, it's a SaaS business. As I said, very, very small. When I went in, I was like, right, who's the best client you could ever have? They said these large American telcos. So I just went hell for leather, man. It was almost like I don't know if you've seen the film like The Beautiful Mind, but I had this little turret in this tiny little office, Castle Square in Brighton, and I had post-its everywhere, and it was like, right, every day blitz it, and yeah, luckily managed to sell into Verizon and AT&T and Sprint and T-Mobile. Yeah, and it was one of those where that business then grew to an extent where I think, yeah, when I moved I had another child, I moved to Devon to be nearer the wife's family and stuff. But when I left that business, I think they were up to about 100 employees, yeah, having these huge contracts. And yeah, I guess from there, I'd moved to Devon, and it was that realization then that I started to look at blockchain. And I won't go too deep on blockchain. I don't know if anyone on the call has an interest in it and stuff, but yeah, it's a technology where as soon as I saw it, I founded an NFT project, and very quickly I was just like, right, I'm working with several clients here that were coming to me and kind of saying, right, you've got some knowledge of this now, some communities, you understand the blockchain, the different layer ones and all this stuff around it. And it was that lots of people were starting to look at like Web3, have it written on a whiteboard, and really start to look at, okay, is there an application for this within the business? Because most people, 99% of people that I chat with have no idea about, even use cases of it and how best to look at it. So I'd say probably 90% of the people I speak with, I just be honest and say, that's not a good use case for it. You're kind of just jumping on a buzzword here. It's a bit like AI and stuff. If it doesn't work within the business, then it doesn't work. But yeah, so I'm working on some really exciting products at the moment, and different clients that I have. So HomeHarvest being one of them. I know we've talked about it, Ollie. I think I talked at one of these startups as well. I mentioned it. So yeah, that's really exciting. We're talking to lots of people about that. Yeah, and it's funny now that I go to all of these sort of conferences, and like I said before, the marketing thing within Web3, it's such a small, still a very, very small amount of people within this world that I sort of operate in. So it's very, it's much easier than, I think in total there's probably 100, maybe 200,000 people total that are within this Web3 blockchain sort of world. So to actually get to those people, I now know like the people that run Yuga and all the Bored Ape Yacht Club and Arbitrum and Layer Zero, and that, all these names might not mean anything, but that's like me saying, I'm mates with the guy who runs Apple, and I'm mates with the guy who runs Microsoft and stuff like that. And it's it's so new and a new world that we're going into that, yeah, I find it really, really, really exciting. Every day is different. I deal with different clients most days, and yeah, there's a whole sort of world out there where, especially different use cases as clients come to me. That's what I enjoy now, is actually finding these uses for it. So a good example, just to mention, we mentioned HomeHarvest. The use case there with blockchain was that they came to me with a Web2 business. So it's accelerated growing. Effectively, it's like a posh wine fridge, but grows microgreens in your fridge every 8 to 10 days. That's the very simple explanation of the Web2 business. They came to us and said, actually, is there a use case here? Is there something where we could look at blockchain? So we said yes. That backbone of the business, and the whole point is that you have this unit, you put the pre-seeded mat in, put the water in, shut the door, and then everything else is done on the app. So we've put a whole Figma together. The whole app is going to have that integrated wallet in there. So you're not saying to the customer, go and get a MetaMask. Remember your 12 seed phrase. All these things that are normal within Web3 at the moment. It's just within the HomeHarvest app. And then we've created a whole tokenomics model. So a whole model whereby then it's a grow to earn. So every time it's like, Ollie, it's time to go and crop your pop joy or your kale. When you actually do that, we can then reward you. So it's the way we look at it is it's kind of like nectar points or Tesco club card points, but kind of on steroids, because it's not tied to our ecosystem. You have that off ramp built into the app. So it can be like, you can save that. Obviously, you have different sort of lock-ins. So it could be that you get to a point where people collate those. It gets to 100 grow token. And again, a token that we've created, 100 grow token that they can then off-ramp and convert into fiat and put into their bank account. There's lots of different angles, but the bit that I really enjoy with that whole sort of model is really the equality that creates. If HomeHarvest as a business, we manage to take out and globally have these units around all around the world with people growing their own microgreens. At the same time, it's that value of that grow token. So here it could be, well done, you've collated 100 grow token, there's £50. You might go out, spend it on a meal or whatever. It's nice, but it's just £50. But actually that £50 globally, when you look at developing countries, that could make a real difference. It's not going to change. That value of grow token and that off ramp is exactly the same. Sorry, I feel like I've said a lot of information then. It's just kind of my story. But yeah, if anyone's got any questions or yeah, if there's anything about, I guess, what I do and yeah, feel free to let me know.
I have a question actually, if that's all right. Ollie,
yeah.
If you wanted to jump in, Ollie, if you got something yet, but so for those who don't know, I actually used to work with Jon in the corporate world, so we've known each other for quite a long time. But usually our conversations are about food and meat rather than Web3 and technology. But Jon and I, we've discussed very briefly how we think tokenization can really rapidly scale and potentially positively affect what we're launching as well. But I haven't been able to really kind of nail that down. So I just wanted to ask you, like, while we're on this call, what is the kind of ideal use case of tokenizing or moving a business into Web3? Can you kind of talk around that?
Yeah, sure. So it very much depends on the vertical and what the business is doing. So as I mentioned, anyone can create a token. The work I work with like Solana and Super Team. We guide all of these students at the moment from the University of Exeter to build these certain models, and one of those, funny enough, is looking at this as a use case. Really, the vast majority of businesses, it doesn't make sense to launch your own token because there's a huge amount of not volatility, but like, what's the use case? What is it based on? The reason that with HomeHarvest we're going to launch a grow token is because it's directly linked to the real world performance of effectively like the Web2 business. Having that token, then you can. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not a tokenomics expert. We have a whole team of people that write the tokenomics papers. But the whole reason of that is that it's based on that, like I said, that Web2 performance. And I think the strongest use case with blockchain is, obviously it's decentralization. Everyone's, their own custodians of their own wallets, but actually that ability to AirDrop, for us is massively important. With HomeHarvest, one part of the business is that we'll be claiming back carbon credits, because when you have one of these units, there's no food miles, things aren't being grown, lettuce isn't being grown in Portugal, driven to or flown to the UK, packaged, taken to a supermarket. You're just growing it in your kitchen. So actually a part of the business through a company called ClimateDAO that we're working with, we're looking at monetizing all of the carbon credits that we generated from that. So when, it could be that, I don't know, we hit our 10,000th or our millionth carbon credit that we're selling, and actually then you can just distribute that to everybody that has one of these units. And so it's that ability to just, I think the airdrop element of tokenization is a big one, because as I said, it's not, okay, we're giving you, HomeHarvest points and you can use it to buy a hoodie or a hat or, something enclosed within our ecosystem. The whole point of it is that actually you can collate that and then look at it as, as effectively a supplementary income, because you can convert that into fiat, put it into your bank account. But that's kind of like the long example with HomeHarvest. But I think the point, to go back to your point, Mike, is it just has to make sense. There's a lot of businesses that I've seen that have launched a token and you see it just go up where the team are buying it, and then it just, it bottoms out, it rugs, and that in itself has more detriment to your business, because then it's incredibly hard once it's nosedive down to then get any sort of banana back up, basically. And I think within, this is kind of a separate point, but within this space at the moment, in order to launch that token, you need it to be, effectively a stable coin. You want it to be respected. It needs to be one of those, listed on Coinbase, listed on Binance and things like that. There's so many, they call them like meme coins or shit coins, basically, and there's 10,000 of those that launch a day. I could launch one right now called, Mike Appleby or whatever, and it holds no intrinsic value. So there's a huge amount of work that goes behind making a token launch, not only just the launch, but the launch be successful, and then that continuity for it to carry on and hold out any value. So it's quite a long answer, but yeah.
I've been told I've got no intrinsic value before, so
not by me, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Darren.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, John, I love your brain, by the way, and fair play to you for your entrepreneurial ability to understand what to me is like garlic bread the future. Mate, fair play to you. The question I've got is, I'm working with a number of startups that are looking at solar opportunities within the social landlords, and about how we can create a community of solar in order to fund energy. One of the answers that's been talked about is blockchain, creating a sharing platform where we can commoditize, but remove the big entities. So peer-to-peer trading of energy. I'd love to understand that better. It's probably not a short question for right now, but John, do you do talks on these things? Do you actually come and visit companies and talk?
Yeah, totally. So I've got, it's called Wedge Consultancy, and I'll get Ollie to share it around and stuff, but yeah, you can have a look on there. A lot of what I do is sort of going in, guiding companies on, effectively like sales techniques within Web3. But then it's the key part of it, and all I tend to do now is looking as use cases. Is it a good use case, and will it work? It has to, as I said, it has to make sense. But but by all means, that's I love doing that stuff. I'm on various panels, so I go up to Manchester quite a lot for the Manchester Blockchain Alliance, and I was over in France last week at a few panels as well, which was quite fun over in Paris.
I'll introduce you to.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, awesome.
I'll be happy. Yeah, let's have a follow-up call, Darren. I'd love to chat about it, and rather than go into the detail, but I'd love to have a chat about that.
Yeah, but well done, John. It's lovely hearing about your business, mate.
Thanks, man. Cheers.
Thanks, Darren. Gary.
Hi, John. It was good talk. Just a few questions from it is, when you mentioned that people are coming to you to see whether it benefits their company, that they obviously don't think it does because they don't know it does, because otherwise why would they be asking you? Are they coming to raise money? So you see a lot of people from the startup world going, well, you know what, it's quite hard to raise startup money. If I go get a token, then can I raise money that way?
Yeah, not really, to be honest. I'd say, people do approach me about looking at funding and sort of looking at VCs and angels and things, but not really. Like, I think because, I've sold throughout my career, I've sold to massive businesses. So I've got this crazy network, and yes, some of the largest businesses have been, or sorry, the largest sort of deals I've had through Wedge Consultancy have been existing large businesses where, you know, they don't have a Web3 department. You know, they don't want to look at getting that in there, and actually they just think, you know, and I've heard it a few times where it is literally like, we've got this written on a board and it's been written on that board for 6 months and we're none the wiser about what, you know, or as we've touched on in this call, especially within Web3, it's a little bit like the Wild West. You know, there's 50x more grifters in Web3, and the amount of rugs and, you know, people that just disappear, and the anonymity behind some people. And I kind of stand out in this world because they call it doxed, where I'm, you know, I've come out and said, this is who I really am. Like, here's my LinkedIn profile, here's my website. You know, you can see that I work in this co-work space in Exeter. And there's a lot of people that don't. You know, when I was at this show last week, there's people walking around with like massive helmets on and just crazy stuff where you look at it and you go, that is just making you look more suspicious than ever. But me coming out and going, actually, no, this is, you know, this is what I do all the time. This is my sort of IRL in real life. This is me, and this is, you know, I'm proud of it, and all that type of stuff. You know, I've got an accountant and I pay tax, and, you know, all of that type of thing. Like, it's an absolute nightmare. But yeah, that's the thing, I think. Yeah,
I've got a couple more questions. I've got a couple more, but go to Neil and Graham, and I'll come back up again.
Cool, no worries.
Neil.
Hi, John. Yeah, great talk. So great to hear that you're doing talks. I'd like to have a catch up with you. I'm organising a sustainability and creativity AI summit at Reading University in September, and the kind of HomeHarvest pieces could be very interesting topic. Then, and I guess in balancing with that, I've got a question about AI meets Web3, because AI is unauthentic, or we're kind of, you know, living in, while Web3, I'm seeing trends as being almost like a level of authenticity, because things kind of appear once and they, so one of my clients is looking at capturing learning history, or kind of CVs, or kind of, you know, so you actually would have a CV which is in the blockchain, which proves that your education, your learning, your experience is actually genuine. So it was just interesting. I'd see that kind of, and interesting your perspective about how Web3 and authenticity could be almost like an antidote to AI and unauthenticity.
Yeah, a little bit, and that is a certain, you know, definite. There's a section of Web3 where that's the train of thought. Is you know, it's funny that people have their own sort of passions and why they're passionate about blockchain technology, and certainly one of those is validation. You know, once something's on the blockchain, it's immutable. You know, you can't change it. It's there for the whole world to see, and it will never change. So, you know, if you took like education, for example, if your degree went on there or any additional training went on there, that's a stamp. You know, at the moment, you know, I did go to university and I did get a degree, but if I go and apply for a job now and say this is my degree, and that, they're not going to check it. No, nobody checks that stuff. And it's like, actually, more with the sort of advanced training and stuff like that. There's a whole section of people that think that's and it is, you know, that's not an argument. You know, that's a good use case for it, because you can just look on blockchain. You know, that's kind of the whole point with blockchain, that everybody can see it. You know, everything's there. You know, if you go into wallets, you can see the transactions, you can see where they're linked, you can see if they're suspicious. Like, all of that's there and open source for everyone to see. And interesting with the AI piece, because I've got, again, there's another sort of community within Web3 that focuses on AI. It's been a hot topic. I know a few guys actually that I go up to Somerset House every couple of weeks and work with the Solana team and Super team. And there was a guy there who built, it was basically like an AI trading bot. So it was using all the data, looking at the hot trades, doing minor trades, but then picking early things. And I can't remember how many million it made, but, you know, they had to turn it off in the end because it started going a bit ludicrous. But there's a whole part there as well with the AI. Again, that's not my area, but yeah, I think AI is sort of infiltrating every industry at the moment.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right.
Hi, John. Love a follow-up chat if possible. I'm involved in helping companies with B Corp and stuff. There's a few clients. I think this sort of HomeHarvest, if I've picked up the right website and I get the right gist of it, I think would be really quite an interesting space for them.
Love it.
Yeah, and also Darren, it'd be great to have a catch up with you. I'm involved with social house builders as well, so that piece about, you know, using solar and stuff and that kind of interaction of like, social value and carbon credits and all that. It's very interesting, I think, space and how you kind of work and stuff in that. But yeah, both of you would be great if possible. I've sent you a LinkedIn connection request, so I hope to get a catch up. All right.
Yeah, love to. That'd be great.
Thanks, Graham. Gary.
Yeah, just a couple more questions. One around marketing is quite interesting that you said about you're in that ecosystem that you don't need to market. But do you think that industry needs to market? Because let's face it, 99.9% fear it, don't know it, like it, scared of the names, you get to know like the branding. So
big time, big time.
Web3 has to really push it a bit more.
100%. And I think, that was almost like me as Wedge Consultancy and where I'm as a business. There's like a few of us, and it's, I pull in different resource from all different places. But that's very much me. You're totally right there, Gary, that Web3 as a whole, they do spend, this thing in Paris last week, I don't know if you've heard of Pudgy Penguins. It was like an NFT project. They now sell these little plushy penguins, but they sell them in every Walmart. And, suddenly it's a massive business. These little penguins, when you get home, you QR code on the bottom, and that's actually then creating you like a Pudgy. Again, it's that mass adoption of getting people, you do it. It sets up a wallet for you. It's a silly little penguin and whatnot. I say silly little penguin. They did an airdrop just before Christmas, and everyone who owned a penguin got like $4,000 each. So it was suddenly like, just before Christmas. But they spent, they had massive inflatable igloos and all types of stuff going on. And that's where I think they're the businesses that are spending the money. Like Bored Ape Yacht Club, they have like Ape Fest, where they had it in Lisbon and took over all of Lisbon. And they did, there's all these huge, like Azuki do massive Japanese events. And it's funny because those companies spend millions and millions and millions of pounds, and you go, oh, that should have a massive impact. But globally, that's nothing. That's a tiny drop in the ocean of trying to get everyone's attention. So they are trying, but fully agree. Web3 as a whole, and I think there's just been a lot of crypto scams. When you look at like FTX, there's a lot of negative press around crypto, and ultimately, I'm not here to sort of fly the flag for crypto and be a sort of radical or anything like that. But if it's big finance and banks and things that feed that negativity. They if suddenly everyone goes, I'm not using the bank anymore, then all the banks will shut down. So it's But again, I'm not here to preach that.
No, to be honest, that's a bit like AI. I was speaking to someone yesterday and we were talking about AI, and that's becoming scary. But you go, where does it come scary from? Is it rumors that people start talking about and start spreading that fear? And then it becomes a bad name. So you have to go back.
I've got a good one for you. I did this one. Have you heard of something called Boardy? Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
So I had a go on it the other day where it was, I've always thought AI, it will affect lots of industries, but sales, you're pretty sound, building rapport, that human-to-human one-to-one interaction, even though it's mainly through Zoom now and not face-to-face, that will always have a place. And I was kind of complacent with it, I guess, but a friend of a friend of a friend has built this thing, Boardy. I saw a video of him where he was going to go and try and get VC funding, and he does like YouTube videos and stuff as well. And he's there waiting to go and meet this VC, and then his phone goes, and it's this AI Boardy that's phoned him to say, don't bother with that meeting. I've actually just secured us 8 million from somewhere else, like leave the meeting and come back. And you can phone this Boardy. So I, on LinkedIn or whatever, I messaged it like, hi Boardy, I'm interested to see what you can do. He phones me, and I can't tell it's an AI. Like it's that quick. There's no lag, and he's just like, "Oh, hi John. I've looked at Mr. Wedge. I like what you're doing in Web3. Tell me more about this." So I was just like, "Okay, this is the HomeHarvest, the introduction deck to HomeHarvest." And obviously, you press it, and he goes, "Yeah, it's really impressive." And he's just read it. He's read the 20 pages, and then he's just like, "Okay, what are you looking for? Are you looking for this?" And that blew my mind. To not have, usually you'd hear it and go, there's a lag there, or there's the mispronunciation, or you misunderstood that, or that one. And now he's following up with me on LinkedIn, just going, "Oh, I've got someone here I think you should speak to about this. There's someone here who might be a good introduction for, Driver's NFT project." And terrifying, to be honest, terrifying.
Yeah. And when you think even going forward, I don't even know if it does this yet,